What is up, everybody? Welcome to Cref.
Welcome to Cref, my friends.
So happy that you're here today because today we are reviewing the Rings of Power episodes number 1 and number 2. And FYI, this is a spoiler review.
Now, guys, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, and if you would, leave a like on this video.
Out of the way, let's get right into it.
Let's get right in.
Okay, guys, so episode number 1. So, look, right off the bat, I think there was, a lot of hullabaloo around this show. There was a lot of negative press about it, some positive press.
Yeah.
And so for me personally, I wanted to go in with sort of a little bit of optimism because, I love Lord of the Rings. I wanted this to be
excited.
good.
I mean, I was excited about it, but I was like really worried that this is gonna get the Star Wars treatment, and we're not gonna see what we want to see, you know. So I was a little nervous, but excited at the same time.
Yeah, and so when for the first episode we started watching it, and he starts with Galadriel, obviously, and actually I should even back up a little bit. Before that, it starts with the quintessential exposition where they sort of talk about all the the stuff you need to know, especially for new Lord of the Rings fans. I think it helps.
Yeah,
right.
And I'm glad they did that.
Yeah, and then they start in Valinor with Galadriel, and then they go to kind of fast forward to she's grown up and she's hunting Sauron, and she's hunting the orcs and stuff. And I thought that was. I'm kind of come at it from somebody who's maybe never seen Lord of the Rings and stuff, and I guess like her brother dying is a good and simple hook, for people who've never seen it.
Yeah, I mean, again, for somebody that has seen Lord of the Rings and has read the books and has read the prequel book, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of kind of baggage there. So seeing Galadriel as like this warrior character, it was a little weird for me, but honestly, if I'm being completely honest here, even as a fan, they kind of sold me.
Yeah.
Honestly, they did, because I think the actress does a really good job of not being like the Galadriel we see in the Lord of the Rings films, but more of like a younger, more rugged Galadriel. I really like that.
Right, and because in the movies, right, you kind of see hints of darkness in Galadriel, right, when you with the ring and everything. And so I think they're sort of alluding to that here with her sort of tug of war with the darkness inside of her. And again, the actress did I think a good job, right? She is sort of the brooding, kind of like angry person at this point.
Yeah, and I think if we were if it was just about her, wouldn't be a big fan of this show. But I think what this show is doing pretty well is it's got a diverse band of, I guess you could say, main characters, because you have the Hobbit character Nori, you have Arondir, the elf, you have Elrond, which is awesome.
Yeah, that was a surprise.
And I really like the actor that's playing Elrond. It kind of fits.
Yeah, I think him as the young politician, which was kind of cool.
Yeah,
I mean, what I will say is, it started off a little bit slow, that first episode. I mean, there was that fight with the snow troll thing, but for the most part, that was it for the big fights and stuff, right? A lot of it was just setup, which again is understandable. You have a big IP here, Lord of the Rings. You have a lot to explain, a lot to establish, especially with multiple characters, right? And so it makes sense in that first episode you're trying to, get everybody's story straight, get the audience invested in each of these characters, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, they got me invested. If I'm honest, like it really. These are characters we've never met before. Some of them we've met, but this is a new Hobbit. These are new elves. And I think what they've done really well is, with the Star Wars shows, right? There's that balance of new fans versus the old fans. And for me, what I felt was in this first episode, they did a good job of establishing, okay, here's some lore for people that are new, but the world itself is really, really beautiful for the older fans that have been here from the beginning.
Of course.
And I got to comment on this. The world is beautiful. It is really well done. I mean, visuals, the CGI, the visuals. I mean, watching it is really enjoyable just to see what we're seeing, because it's a pre-Lord of the Rings, so to speak, like, Return of the King, all that, Fellowship of the Ring. Lord of the Rings world, Middle Earth. Yeah. So, you know, you're not seeing Gondor. You're not seeing Rivendell, right? Yeah. You're seeing these the pre-map.
Yeah, I mean, Valinor, for crying out loud, right? All these like really elaborate locations. And like Chris said, CGI is really great. You can tell the budget really went a long way there.
Yeah, 100 million more? I don't know.
It feels like you're sitting in a movie theater watching a fully fledged, full budget movie, right? I mean, you know, nothing felt out of place there. there in terms of the CGI, in terms of the visuals. I think probably my favorite shot was when they're walking like in London or in the forest or whatever that, the elf place is called, and then you have like the graves where they're in the trees. That was so cool. I mean, they go to all kinds of cool locations, and all of it felt believable, right? It feels like it's Middle Earth. Right?
And what I think is really interesting about this is, if you, again, I keep making the comparisons to Star Wars, guys, but it's for a reason. It's because in the Star Wars, some of these shows that are kind of in the older, the main movie era, right? You know who the villain is. You know it's Darth Vader. Okay, it's not a big deal. Yeah. Here, it's far enough back where, okay, it's Sauron, but you don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. It's like exciting. Yeah. So I really like that, even though it's obviously the villain we're familiar with. Yeah. It's still unknown.
And the interesting thing about that is that with the orcs and Sauron, you don't quite know, because you don't really know what they are. There's almost a horror aspect to it, because it's like they're in the shadows. People talk about them. They're alluded to, but you never really quite see them, except for, again, in the very beginning with the snow troll. But it's just whispers and shadows. And I really like that aspect of it, because, in the Lord of the Rings movies, we're so used to just seeing orcs everywhere, right? We're so used to seeing the big battles. And here it's just starting to begin. Yeah. And so I thought that was pretty cool. And on top of that, the actors are doing a good job. I mean, across the board, I think, a lot of these are unknowns as far as I know, and they're all doing a pretty good job, and they're kind of embodying the characters as well as possible, I think, especially for our first episode.
Yeah, I mean, this is Amazon Prime's big budget show. This is kind of their Game of Thrones, right? Yeah. And you can tell that they're not trying to go for the same effect, but switching between the characters, I think I felt in the first episode was really well done, because just when I was starting to get uninterested in one character, they switched. Yeah. Galadriel got a little bit more time. Obviously, it seems like she's the driving character for the most part. But again, even the Hobbit character, Nori, I didn't expect to like her that much, because I'm like, okay, Hobbits, whatever. Yeah, right. Even in the Lord of the Rings movies, the Frodo part.
They're not technically called hobbits in the show, but we all
know, right? So even then, I was like, you know what? She's a unique character. She's got her own little struggle, little conflict. Yeah. I like it a lot. Yeah. And again, I think the weakest character for me is probably Arondir, the elf. Yeah, he's kind of stoic, and again, that's fine. That's his character. But if you can keep the show going longer, and you're gonna get people interested the same level as Game of Thrones, each character's has to stand on their own for the most part. And right now, I don't know.
I don't think it's going to be quite as gritty as Game of Thrones. And so it really rests on how invested people get in the story. Right now, Galadriel, like the actress, her intensity is really great. I don't think that's going to last forever.
Yeah, I hope not.
I don't think it can hold the show on its own, because I think you do need Nori and, you need all the characters in there. And I think, again, switching around is a good move. Now, was it perfect? I think it was a solid start, but I think, again, right, like the first episode is very much Galadriel being like, there's a threat, and everyone's like, nah, not really. And that's kind of pretty much the whole first episode. But I think did a great job of setting things up. For example, the meteor, right, that comes down, you see who I think is Gandalf,
I think so too.
Yeah, and then so too. Right, and then you see Elrond talking with the Gil-galad. He's like, actually, we know that there is some kind of darkness that's coming, and we sent Galadriel off, and so there's a little bit of like intrigue that gets set up for the next episode, and so. It was long, but I understand why there's so much setup, because there's so much you have to do.
I was okay with it. Yeah. I mean, me being a Lord of the Rings fan aside and being excited for it, I felt like if they had made it any shorter, it'd have been like, oh, okay, it felt all too quick, But this, I think, hey, you know what? They established each character. They started to add some mystery aspects to it. You have the kid with the sword, Theo, the son. You have obviously the meteorite crashing down. You have a lot of different questions that you want answered, and I was hooked. I honestly, I wasn't expecting to like this show. I was expecting to go in with a lot of criticism where, they're just trying to make money and all this type of stuff. But instead, I really feel like it's Lord of the Rings. It is Lord of the Rings. Yeah. And I feel like because it is far enough back where it's not right before like the Hobbit, kind of thing, and it's far enough back. They actually have a lot of room to do some really cool stuff, and they're already doing it.
Yeah, well, I mean, what I'll say is two things. Number one, I don't know if people who've never seen Lord of the Rings are quite as invested in this show because we've seen Lord of the Rings. We know all these locations and characters, so when we see them, it's like, oh wow, cool. But for people who don't know anything about it, I can't honestly say if it was enough because there's a lot of exposition that's getting thrown in, a lot of like terms, a lot of like, mythical stuff. And it's like, okay, what makes an audience care? It's the basic stuff, right? It's revenge, it's sex, it's all these different things, right? And so when you have to ask like, okay, an audience that knows nothing about this stuff, are they invested, visuals aside, which are beautiful, right?
Yeah.
I can't quite answer that, but for me as a Lord of the Rings fan, I'm very much intrigued. This first episode did a good job of intriguing me 100%.
So if I had to give it a score out of 10, I mean, I'd probably give it a solid 8.7. Like, I think there were certain things, it was a little bit slow in the beginning and a little too much on Galadriel, but I thought it was a really solid first episode.
Okay, yeah. For me, again, right, like I understand that what they're trying to do with the setup, and so I kind of give them a pass there. I think that, again, like it was a little bit of a flat first episode, but again, because of the setup, like that is how it's going to be. But it made me want to watch the next episode. Like the beautiful visuals made me feel like I was watching a Lord of the Rings movie.
Yeah.
And so I know that they're taking probably a lot of liberties. Like the really hardcore Lord of the Rings fans might, take a little bit of umbrage of the fact that they're taking so many liberties. But for me, I guess I don't find myself caring all that much.
Yeah.
And so with the beautiful visuals, with the, strong acting, and with, the setup for the next episode, I would go an 8.2 out of 10.
Okay.
All right, guys. Now, episode number 2, which personally I thought was a much stronger episode than the first one.
Yeah, the second episode was really good.
Yeah, it was really good.
I mean, when we got to the end, I was like, I wanted way more.
Where's the next episode?
I was about to go Netflix, where's the next episode? Hit the next episode, and it wasn't there.
Yeah.
And honestly, there was so much that happened in this episode that I really liked because what they did is they said, okay, the first episode was set up, but now, we set it up for you. Yeah. Now we're going to get straight into it. I'm really, really glad they did that.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite part for sure is when they went to Khazad-dûm. I mean, oh my God. Yeah. First of all, it looked awesome, right?
Yeah.
But the entire sequence with what's the dwarf's name? Durin. And, Elrond having to, smash the rocks and then him meeting the family. His wife was so, great actress, right? Like all of that was just it was very charming, right? Which is what I wanted to see because Lord of the Rings, part of it is charm, right?
Yeah,
and I think
you need to have that humor. You need to have that humor.
Yeah.
You have that charm. Yeah. And again, what this episode did really well, which I think the first episode did okay, but this episode did better, is they realized that, okay, we know what sections we need to focus on to move the plot forward and feel like it's moving forward. So, there wasn't too much of Galadriel in the water. There was just enough to build some tension where it was exciting.
Right.
But then they got to Elrond. Just when you're getting tired of Elrond, they go to Nori. When you're getting tired of Nori, they go back to Eärendil. So I think if they can keep this balancing act of all these characters, just transitioning just when it gets a little bit boring, you're not interested, I think it's gonna be really good. And for me, one of my my favorite parts is obviously Khazad-dûm as well.
Yeah, so good.
That humor is what that Gimli type humor, Legolas kind of go back and forth. Yeah. You kind of have that same dynamic, Legolas and Gimli, right? With Elrond and Durin, right? Which I really like. But what I didn't expect to really like was even Nori's parts. And Nori's parts with this could be Saruman, this could be Gandalf. We don't know yet. We're just speculating, but. It seems like what's going to happen is this hobbit is going to get to go on an adventure with the wizard, which maybe starts this whole thing with Gandalf and the hobbits, you know?
And what I'll say is all 3, I guess 4, threads of story are pretty strong, right? Because you have the elf guy. What's his name? Arondir, right? You have him like investigating like these holes and they're being dug in the ground, which end up being orcs, which is a strong sequence. Then you have Elrond and King Khazad-dûm, which is great. And then you have Nori and Gandalf, which is great. And then you have Galadriel, who is, again, we are used to, from the first episode, and even in the Lord of the Rings movies, you're used to seeing her being very powerful. And then she's super vulnerable, right? All of a sudden, which is a cool, interesting change, right? And so the pacing in the second episode was definitely a lot better because there was constantly something happening, constant danger, constant mystery, especially with Nori and Gandalf. And so at the end, right, like I was like, I want the third episode because you see Galadriel, like she's still, you know, on the raft and you see this like mysterious figure standing over her on a boat and it's like, who is that? And so I was, again, like Chris, like you said, I was very surprised that I was going to like this, but I really liked the second episode.
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, I think the most underrated part, maybe just as me as a fan, but Celebrimbor.
Oh yeah, that
right? Because again, for those of you, I mean, there's a video game series called Shadow of Mordor, right? Which is basically Celebrimbor is one of the main characters in this video game series, right? To see him on screen, it's not exactly the same, but you know, I mean, for those of you that don't know, like he makes the rings, you know, and you know that's coming, right? And so to see them go through that process of that's coming, which I think it is in this show, oh my god, that's gonna be awesome.
I mean, it was just it was a very, very good episode, and I'm sort of glad that it's good. You know, like I didn't want it to be. Who wants it to be bad, right? Like it ended up being good. So, Chris, what's your score for this episode?
So I think in the second episode, what I like the most is they're not treating the people that are watching it like little kids. They're like, okay, well, here's the thing: we set it up for you guys, and now like we're gonna give you some more information, and you just gotta keep up. You know what I mean? And I don't think it's too confusing. I think they're giving you just enough where there's some exposition, some action. And I like that because as a fan, as an older fan that's been watching and reading it forever, I'm like, well, okay, I feel like I'm getting something new. I'm not feeling like they're just reiterating everything to some new fan, you know? But I think as a new fan, you're also getting something new as well. So I really like that. So I would definitely give this episode, I mean, I'm going 9.5 out of 10. Like this is, if we can see this in every subsequent episode, this style of pacing, level of detail, cool locations, I'm all for it.
Yeah, again, like this episode was so good because each of the threads like felt, I mean, I would say if there's a weak thread, it's Arondir and like the mom and like the kid, but even that is like it's intriguing because he has this like weapon that's like, oh, it's, I guess it's Sauron's, like one of the orcs' weapons or something,
like a Nazgul sword.
Nazgul sword or something, right? And so that's kind of, I mean, that if that's the weakest, but even that was like pretty good with the orcs and stuff, and so I liked how all the threads like were entertaining. Right now, again, there you might look at this episode and be like, okay, you know, it's whatever. But I think that if you just kind of put the cynicism aside and you just kind of watch and accept it for what it is, like it's good. Again, I don't know all the Lord of the Rings lore and stuff, and so I don't know how many liberties they're taking with this stuff. But just as a show, I think it's very entertaining. So I think I would agree. 9.5 out of 10 is a good score for this episode.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching our review of episode 1 and 2 of The Rings of Power on Amazon Prime. Let us know down in the comments. What do you guys think? Did you guys like it? Are you guys super hardcore Lord of the Rings fans that know every single detail and you're like, they are completely just ripping this apart and going crazy? Which, hey, it's a fair criticism. I'm sure it's definitely out there. But maybe you're like us and you're just finding entertaining. You know, let us know in the comments below. We always like hearing from you guys. And if you haven't already, leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. With that said, we'll see you guys later.
See you in the next one.
Bye.